I thought I was marrying a loyal man. Then his mother showed me the white dress she wanted to wear to our wedding, and he said, "You're jealous of her." I didn't cry. I just took off my ring. That was the moment everything became clear. Not because of the dress by itself. Not even because of one argument. It was everything that came before it. Every interrupted dinner. Every boundary he called cruel. Every time his mother cried and he looked at me like I was the problem for noticing. For years, I told myself I was being patient. I told myself love meant understanding someone's complicated family. I told myself Patrick was just a good son. A man who cared for his mother that deeply had to be a man who would care for his wife too. That was what I believed when I first met him. Patrick was kind in quiet ways. He remembered the little things. If I had a rough day, he brought coffee without making a big performance out of it. If I was anxious, he could usually tell before I said anything. He had this steady warmth that made me feel safe. And the way he talked about his mother, Margaret, made me admire him even more. His father had left when Patrick was young, and Margaret raised him alone. Patrick spoke about that part of his life with pride, but also with a kind of guilt I didn't understand back then. She had nobody, he told me on one of our early dates. She gave up everything for me. I remember reaching across the table and touching his hand. That must have been hard for both of you, I said. He nodded, and his eyes softened. She only had me. So I just try to make sure she knows I'm still there. At the time, I thought that was beautiful. I didn't realize he didn't mean he was there for her. He meant he belonged to her. At first, Margaret's presence in our relationship seemed normal enough. Patrick called her every morning during his drive. He went to her house most Sundays to fix things, check the yard, carry groceries, or sit with her for dinner. Sometimes she needed help with a bill, sometimes with a leaky faucet, sometimes just with being lonely. I respected it. I even encouraged it. If he had to take a call from her, I stayed quiet. If he needed to stop by after work, I told him I understood. I didn't want to be the woman who made a man feel guilty for loving his mother. But slowly, her needs stopped feeling like needs. They felt like tests. She called during dinners, during movies, during the rare nights when Patrick and I had time alone. If he didn't answer, she called again. If he silenced his phone, she texted. If he ignored the texts, she would send something like, "Never mind. I don't want to bother you." And then he would panic. The first time I truly felt something shift was on my birthday. Patrick had taken me to a nice steakhouse. I wore a dress I loved. We ordered dessert. For once, his phone had stayed quiet most of the night, and I remember thinking maybe we were finally having a moment that belonged only to us. Then the phone lit up. Margaret. He stared at it for a second, then answered. "Mom? What's wrong?" His face changed so quickly that I sat up straight. I thought she was hurt. I thought something serious had happened. He stood and walked away from the table. I watched him from across the room, his shoulders tense, one hand pressed against his forehead. When he came back, he was already grabbing his coat. "I have to go," he said. "What happened?" "Her garbage disposal is making a weird noise. She thinks something's wrong with the pipes." I waited for the rest of it. There wasn't more. "It's my birthday," I said. "I know. She can turn it off and wait until morning." "She's panicking." "Patrick, it's a sink." His jaw tightened. "Please don't do this right now." "Do what?" "Make me feel bad for helping my mother." I looked down at the half-finished dessert between us. The little candle on the table had burned almost to nothing. "I'm not asking you not to help her," I said. "I'm asking you not to leave me here for a garbage disposal." He sighed like I was being impossible. "It'll take maybe an hour." Then he kissed the top of my head and left. I sat there alone for 20 minutes, waiting for the check. I paid the bill myself. I drove home with my makeup still perfect and my stomach completely hollow. When Patrick came over later, he acted like the awkward part was over. "She was scared," he said. "You know how she gets." I wanted to say, "And what about how I get?" But I didn't. I swallowed it because I thought swallowing small hurts was part of being understanding. That became the pattern. Margaret needed something. Patrick went. I asked for balance. Patrick got defensive. Margaret cried. Patrick softened. I got quiet. Patrick called that peace. By the time we got engaged, I had already learned how to measure my disappointment in small, acceptable portions. Not enough to start a fight. Not enough to sound jealous. Not enough for him to say, "You just don't like her." That was his favorite defense. Anytime I pointed out that Margaret had crossed a line, he made it about my feelings toward her instead of her behavior. "You're reading into it. She didn't mean it like that." "She's lonely." She has nobody else. Those 4 sentences could erase almost anything. When we moved into our apartment together, I thought the distance might help. I thought maybe once Patrick had his own home with me, he would naturally understand that our relationship needed space. Instead, Margaret treated it like a loss. The day we moved the last of his boxes, she called repeatedly. We were carrying furniture upstairs when one of her voicemails played by accident. I hope she knows what she's taking from me, Margaret said, her voice trembling. I hope she's happy. I stopped in the hallway with a box pressed to my hip. Patrick quickly turned the volume down. She's just emotional, he said. She said I'm taking you from her. She doesn't mean it that way. How else could she mean it? He didn't answer. That silence told me more than any explanation would have. The first week in the apartment didn't feel like a beginning. Patrick spent half of it reassuring Margaret nothing had changed. He texted her before dinner, after dinner, before bed. He promised her he would still come every Sunday. He promised he would still answer his phone. He promised she was not being replaced. Meanwhile, I was unpacking dishes and wondering why our new life had to come with an apology. Then one Sunday at her house, Margaret asked for a key. Not politely. Not as a suggestion. As if it had already been decided. I'll need a spare, she said, pouring coffee. For emergencies. I looked at Patrick. He looked into his mug. What kind of emergencies? I asked. If Patrick doesn't answer his phone, she said. Or if something happens. A mother should be able to get to her son. I kept my voice calm. We're not giving out keys right now. Her expression changed immediately. I see. Patrick shifted in his chair, already uncomfortable. That's not personal, I added. We just want privacy. Margaret looked at him, not me. I didn't realize privacy meant shutting your mother out. Mom, Patrick said weakly. No, it's fine, she whispered. I know where I stand now. On the drive home, he lasted about 10 minutes before snapping. You embarrassed her. I turned toward him. I embarrassed her? She asked for a key. She wasn't asking to move in. She does not need access to our apartment. Our apartment, he repeated, bitterly. You hear yourself? Yes, I do. That's why I said it. She's my mother. And I'm supposed to be your wife. His response came too quickly. Not yet. The car went quiet. He looked like he regretted it, but not enough to apologize. I stared out the window and tried to convince myself it was just stress. But his words stayed with me. Not yet. As if 4 years together meant I was still temporary. As if the life we were building only counted once I had signed the papers. A few weeks later, we had our engagement dinner. My parents were there. My sister Amy sat beside me. A few close friends joined us at a small bistro. I wanted one happy night. Just one. Margaret arrived wearing a pale cream dress and a smile that never reached her eyes. She hugged Patrick for too long, then touched my arm lightly. You look tired, Christine, she said. Wedding planning already too much for you? I laughed because everyone was watching. Dinner went smoothly until the toasts. My father said something sweet about welcoming Patrick into the family. My mother cried a little. Amy squeezed my hand under the table. Then Margaret stood. My son has always been my rock, she began. Even as a boy, he knew how to take care of me. People smiled politely. She turned toward me. A mother is a boy's first love, after all. So take good care of him, Christine. And remember, some bonds come before marriage. A few guests laughed awkwardly, unsure whether it was a joke. I looked at Patrick. He smiled. Not because he agreed, I don't think. Because he didn't want to see it. That was worse in its own way. I waited for him to say something. Anything. A gentle correction. A laugh to soften it. A simple, Mom, come on. Instead, he lifted his glass. To family, he said. So everyone drank. Wedding planning made everything sharper. Margaret didn't want to be included. She wanted control. She wanted to attend every appointment. Venue walkthroughs. Flower meetings. Cake tasting. Hair trials. If we made a decision without her, she treated it like an insult. At first, I tried to give her small things. I sent her photos of centerpieces. I asked if she had a song she wanted included. I invited her to lunch with my mother. But with Margaret, every inch became proof she deserved a mile. The first serious fight happened over dress shopping. I wanted to go with my mother and Amy. That was it. I didn't want a crowd. I didn't want opinions from someone who had spent months making me feel like a guest in my own engagement. When I told Patrick, he looked exhausted before I even finished. Can she just come? He asked. No. Christine. No, Patrick. I'm allowed to have one thing that isn't about keeping your mother calm. She's going to be hurt. She will survive being hurt. That's harsh. What's harsh is that I can't try on a wedding dress without worrying your mother will cry because she isn't centered. He rubbed his face with both hands. She just wants to feel included. She wants to feel in charge. You always assume the worst. Because she keeps showing me the worst. His voice rose. She is nobody else. I hated that sentence by then. Not because Margaret wasn't lonely. She was. But loneliness is not a permit to control another person's life. Patrick didn't see that, or he refused to. Please, he said, softer now. Just let her come. One afternoon. Then we can move on. That was how he always got me. Not by demanding. By turning my boundaries into something I was doing to him. So I gave in. The bridal appointment was exactly what I feared. I found a dress I loved. Simple, soft, clean. No heavy train. No dramatic lace. When I stepped out, my mother's eyes filled with tears. Amy covered her mouth and whispered, "That's the one." For 3 seconds, I felt beautiful. Then Margaret spoke. "It's nice," she said slowly. "But Patrick has always loved lace." The room cooled. I looked at her through the mirror. She tilted her head. "He likes romantic styles. That one is a little plain. Almost cold." My mother's expression hardened. Amy stepped forward. "Christine looks beautiful." "I didn't say she didn't," Margaret replied. "I'm just saying I know what my son likes." I stood on that little platform, wearing the dress I had imagined walking toward Patrick in, and suddenly I felt small. Not like a bride. Like someone being judged for failing to play a role she never auditioned for. The stylist tried to rescue the moment with a veil. Margaret smiled and said, "Maybe lace would help." I changed out of the dress with shaking hands. Amy slipped into the fitting room and pulled the curtain closed behind her. "Do not marry into this unless Patrick fixes it," she whispered. I looked down at the gown pulled around my feet. "It's just wedding stress," I said. Amy's face softened, but her voice stayed firm. "No. She's competing with you, and he's letting her." That night, Patrick asked how the appointment went. I told him. "She insulted the dress." He frowned. "She said that. She said you prefer lace and that my dress looked cold." He shrugged. "She probably didn't mean it like that." That shrug hurt more than I expected. "Of course," I said quietly. "Don't start." I looked at him. "Don't start what?" "Turning every comment into evidence." "Evidence of what?" He didn't answer. Because we both knew. Evidence that his mother saw me as competition. Evidence that he knew and still expected me to absorb it. After that, I stopped trying so hard to convince myself everything would change after the wedding. I still hoped it would, but hope had started to feel thin. The wedding got closer. Deposits were paid. My dress was ordered. Guests were booking rooms. People asked if I was excited, and I said yes because that was easier than explaining the pressure sitting on my chest. Then Margaret invited us to dinner 2 months before the wedding. She called it a special surprise. I almost said no. I had been tired all week, and dinner at her house always left me drained. But Patrick looked so relieved when I agreed. "Thank you," he said in the car. "I know things have been tense." Tense is one word for it. He sighed. "Can we please just have a nice night?" I looked out the window. "I'll try." Margaret's house smelled like roasted chicken and garlic. She had candles on the table and Patrick's favorite meal ready. She hugged him first, pressing her cheek against his chest. "My boy," she said. Then she gave me a quick one-arm hug. Dinner felt strangely intimate, but not warm. It felt like I had been invited into a memory where I didn't belong. Margaret told stories about Patrick as a child. How he used to sit at that same table. How he loved that same meal. How he always knew when she needed him. Patrick smiled at the stories. I smiled when I was supposed to. After dessert, Margaret stood and wiped her hands on a towel. "Now," she said brightly, "I want to show you what arrived today." Patrick's fork stopped moving. It was a tiny thing. Almost nothing. But I saw it. He knew. Margaret disappeared down the hallway and came back carrying a garment bag. She laid it over the back of the sofa and unzipped it slowly, like she was revealing something sacred. Then she lifted the dress. White. Not cream. Not pale silver. Not beige. White. A fitted lace gown with long sleeves and a small train. For a second, I genuinely thought I misunderstood what I was seeing. Margaret held it against herself and smiled. "Isn't it beautiful?" I looked at Patrick. He looked down. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Because he knew it was wrong. He knew before I said anything. Margaret turned toward the mirror. I saw it and thought, this is perfect. Elegant. Romantic. Patrick has always loved lace. There it was again. Patrick has always loved. Patrick has always preferred. Patrick has always. As if I was not marrying him. As if I was being tested on how well I could fit into her version of his life. I kept my voice even. Margaret, that looks like a wedding dress. Her smile disappeared. I'm sorry. It's white. It has a train. It looks bridal. She lowered the dress as if I had insulted her. I am the mother of the groom. I know. This is a formal event. I know. So I'm not allowed to look nice? That's not what I said. Her eyes filled with tears so quickly it almost scared me. Everything I do offends you, she whispered. I try to be included, and you make me feel unwanted. I try to be happy for my son, and you twist it into something ugly. Patrick shifted in his chair. I looked at him. Say something. He rubbed his face. Christine, please. No. Say something. Margaret covered her mouth and cried harder. I knew this would happen, she said. She doesn't want me there. She wants me erased. That is not true, I said. Patrick stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. Can you stop? He snapped. The room went silent except for Margaret's crying. I stared at him. Stop what? Attacking my mother. She bought a white dress to wear to our wedding. It's a dress. It's a wedding dress. It's fabric, Christine. I felt something inside me go still. Fabric, I repeated. Yes, fabric. And you're acting like she did something unforgivable. Margaret sat down slowly, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. I don't want to cause problems, she said weakly. Maybe the wedding should be postponed until everyone is ready. Patrick didn't correct her. He didn't say, no, Mom. He didn't say, Christine has a right to be upset. He just stood there, breathing hard, looking trapped. Then he said, maybe a little more time wouldn't hurt. That was when the anger left me. I looked at the dress. Then at Margaret. Then at Patrick. So this is what we're doing? I asked. Patrick's face tightened. Don't make it sound like that. Like what? Like I'm choosing sides. You are. No. I'm trying to keep peace. No, I said. You're keeping her peace. Not ours. His eyes flashed. You're jealous of her. The sentence hit so strangely that for a second, I almost laughed. Jealous. Yes. You don't understand what we have. You never have. Margaret lowered her napkin just enough to watch me. Patrick continued, his voice shaking with anger. She sacrificed everything for me. She was there before you. She'll always be my mother. I never asked you to stop loving your mother. You asked me to choose. No, I said. She did. He shook his head. You're twisting this. I picked up my purse. Christine, he said. But I was already walking toward the door. The drive home was silent. Patrick gripped the steering wheel. I watched the streetlights slide across the windshield and felt like I was waking up from something I should have seen much earlier. When we reached the parking garage, he turned off the car but didn't move. I sat there for a moment, then asked the question I had been avoiding for years. If your mother makes you choose between keeping her happy and protecting our marriage, what will you do? He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. That is such a manipulative question. It's not. It is. You're trying to trap me. No. I'm asking because she has been forcing that choice for years, and you keep pretending not choosing is the same as being fair. He turned toward me, furious now. You don't know what loyalty is. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed steady. I know what loyalty looks like. That's why I know you don't have any left for me. He stared at me like the truth had offended him. Then he said, maybe my mother was right. Maybe you're not ready to be part of this family. There it was. Not our family. This family. A structure already built, with my place already decided. Temporary. Conditional. Small. I opened the car door. He said my name again, softer this time. I didn't turn around. The next morning, I woke up before him. For a few minutes, I lay there listening to him breathe like nothing had changed. Like the night before was just another argument we would smooth over by pretending the wound wasn't there. I looked at my ring. It was beautiful. I used to stare at it at red lights, still surprised it was mine. I had imagined wearing it through holidays, grocery runs, hard conversations, maybe even old age. Now it felt heavy. I slipped it off and placed it in the center of the kitchen counter. No note. No speech. Just the ring. Then I packed. I didn't take everything. Just what mattered. Clothes. Documents. My laptop. A few keepsakes. Things that belonged only to me. I called Amy first. She answered half asleep. Hello. I'm leaving him. For 1 second, there was silence. Then she said, I'm on my way. My father came with her. He didn't ask for a full explanation. He looked at my face, looked at the boxes, and nodded. Tell me what goes, he said. That almost broke me. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was simple. No guilt. No lecture. No demand that I explain why I deserved help. Just help. By the time Patrick came home, I was gone. I sat on Amy's floor surrounded by boxes while my phone lit up over and over. Patrick called first. Then texted. Then called again. At first, his messages were angry. You can't just leave like this. We're getting married in 2 months. You're being childish. Then desperate. Please talk to me. Come home. I'm sorry for yelling. Then angry again. You're ruining everything over a dress. That line became the version everyone understood because it was the easiest version to repeat. A dress. As if the dress had appeared out of nowhere. As if it wasn't attached to years of interruptions, guilt trips, insults, and silence. By afternoon, I started canceling vendors. Venue. Caterer. Photographer. Flowers. Music. Every call hurt. Every cancellation cost money. But with each one, I felt air return to my lungs. The wedding coordinator asked gently, "Are you sure?" I looked at my bare finger. Yes, I said. I'm sure. Margaret never called me directly. She posted online instead. Something vague about women who enter families only to divide them and how a mother's love is misunderstood by outsiders. Patrick's Aunt Kathleen messaged me a long paragraph about compassion. His cousin Brian told a mutual friend that I had humiliated the family. Even Melissa, one of my bridesmaids, called me with that careful tone people use when they think you're about to ruin your life. Are you sure this isn't something you can work through? She asked. Maybe it just got out of hand. It got out of hand years ago, I said. I just mean, calling off a wedding is huge. I know. Was it really worth ending everything over what she wanted to wear? I closed my eyes. There it was again. The small version. The version that made me sound unreasonable. I could have said yes to the dress. I could have smiled through the ceremony while Margaret stood near the aisle in white lace. I could have ignored the whispers, the awkward glances, the way she would glow every time someone noticed her. But then what? What happened when we bought a house and she wanted a key? What happened if we had a baby and she wanted to be in every decision? What happened when Patrick and I disagreed about holidays, money, boundaries, or our future? Would every choice go through her feelings first? Would my marriage always pause whenever she cried? I didn't want to spend my life asking my husband to remember I was his wife. A month after I left, Patrick came to Amy's apartment. I agreed to meet him outside, in the courtyard. Not upstairs. Not anywhere private. I wanted space around me. I wanted the option to leave. He looked awful. That hurt too. His hair was messy, his eyes were red, and he looked like the past few weeks had hollowed him out. Christine, he said, stepping toward me. I stepped back. He noticed. I miss you, he said. I didn't answer. The apartment is empty. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about everything. What exactly are you thinking about? He swallowed. That things went too far. I waited. My mom shouldn't have bought the dress. It was the first time I had heard him say it plainly. But it came too late. And? I asked. And I should have handled it better. Handled it better? He rubbed his hands over his face. I should have defended you. The words should have comforted me. They didn't. Because he sounded like a man who had finally learned the correct answer, not a man who truly understood the damage. I'll talk to her, he said quickly. I promise. I'll set boundaries. When? Now. Why now? Because I don't want to lose you. I nodded slowly. That's the problem. He looked confused. You only want boundaries because I left, I said. Not because you believed I deserved them. His face fell. That's not fair. It is. I was stuck in the middle. No, Patrick. You put me in the middle. Then you stood beside her and called it peace. His eyes hardened. You make it sound like I never loved you. I think you did. That seemed to hurt him more than if I had said no. I think you loved me as long as loving me didn't require disappointing her, I said. But marriage would have required that. Over and over again. He looked away. For a moment, I saw the man I had loved. The one who brought me coffee. The one who made me laugh in grocery stores. The one who seemed like he wanted a life with me. Then I saw the boy underneath. Still trying to keep his mother from falling apart. Still afraid her sadness would swallow him. Come home, he said. Please. We can fix this. I shook my head. No. You need to fix this before you ask anyone to build a life with you. His softness turned bitter. So that's it? Yes. You're really throwing us away. No, I said. I'm giving myself back. He gave a humorless laugh. You're cold. After years of being called too sensitive, too dramatic, too rigid, and too suspicious, cold didn't hurt the way he wanted it to. So I said, maybe. Then I walked back inside. Over the next year, I heard things even when I didn't ask. Patrick broke the lease because he couldn't afford the apartment alone. He moved back in with Margaret temporarily. That word stretched longer than anyone expected. Margaret posted photos constantly. Sunday dinners, home projects, holiday decorations, captions about her forever protector and the son who never abandoned her. People said Patrick stopped coming around. He turned down invitations. He looked tired. He didn't talk about the wedding. I didn't celebrate that. Freedom is not always loud. Sometimes it feels like grief with the door open. I still missed him sometimes. Not every day. Not the way I did at first. But there were moments when I missed the version of Patrick who existed when his mother wasn't in the room. I missed the jokes, the quiet mornings, the future I thought we had. But I did not miss shrinking. I did not miss waiting for him to choose me. I did not miss feeling like a guest in my own relationship. A few months after what would have been our wedding date, I booked a short trip to Virginia Beach. Nothing extravagant. Just a small rental near the water, a bag of clothes, and 4 days where nobody needed me to make myself smaller. On the first night, I walked along the shore until my shoes filled with sand. The wind was cold. The sky was gray. I sat on a bench and watched the waves fold into each other. Then I cried. Not because I wanted Patrick back. Because I finally understood how tired I had been. I had spent years trying to prove I was not stealing him from his mother when the truth was worse. There had never been room for me to steal. And maybe some people will say I should have waited. Maybe I should have given him one more chance, one more conversation, one more opportunity to become the husband he promised he would be. But I think about that white dress sometimes. Not because of the color. Because of his face when I asked him to defend me. He looked annoyed. Not shocked. Not protective. Annoyed. As if my pain was just another inconvenience standing between him and his mother's comfort. That was the marriage waiting for me. So I left the ring on the counter. And I walked away before I became the other woman in my own home. Was I wrong for ending everything before the wedding, or did I finally see the truth before it was too late?